You ever had life punch you so hard that for a moment, you didn't even recognize yourself? You look in the mirror, and you're not seeing strength. You're seeing the bruises, the failures, the breakdowns. The world tells you, be strong, but your body's tired, your spirit's crushed, and the silence around you feels like a scream no one's answering. But here's what they won't tell you: adversity doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to expose you, to reveal what you're really made of, to strip away the noise, the masks, the comfort, and leave behind the raw, real version of you. That version, the one forged in hardship, is smarter, sharper, tougher, and more unstoppable than any version that came before. You think the people who inspire you got there through comfort. They bled for it. They failed miserably. They lost everything, sometimes even themselves, before they found their power, and not because they had some magic gene, but because they made a decision. When life said, no, they said, watch me. When I was going through my own hell, moments where I was overlooked, undervalued, dismissed, I didn't know it at the time, but every rejection was a redirection. I didn't get what I wanted, but I got what I needed. That adversity taught me how to grind. It taught me how to think differently. It forced me to grow up faster, stand taller, and lead stronger. And let me tell you something uncomfortable but true: you do not become great when life is easy. You become great when you're crawling, when you're scraping through the dirt, when you're being underestimated. Because that's when you start building muscle, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's when you learn to fight for yourself. You stop blaming. You stop wishing. You adapt. You start asking better questions. What am I being shown? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to become to never end up here again? And when you start doing that, the storm stops being the enemy. It becomes your teacher. People love the success story, but they forget the struggle story. They want the shine but skip the shadow. But the truth is, your shadow season is where your superpowers come from. You sharpen your instincts there. You develop grit. You learn how to stand alone. And that is a strength no one can fake or fabricate. You earn that in the dark. Every scar you carry, that's not shame. That's strategy. That's wisdom you didn't have before. Pain taught you. Loss taught you. Betrayal taught you. And every time you got back up, you upgraded. Mentally, emotionally, psychologically. That adversity didn't weaken you. It sculpted the unshakable version of you. The reason most people stay stuck is because they believe adversity is permanent. It's not. It's a process. You're not being buried. You're being planted. But whether you rise is up to you. You can stay down, or you can get mad enough, brave enough, committed enough to turn it into something powerful. And don't just bounce back. Come back better. Come back smarter. Come back so strong that the version of you who once cried at night wouldn't even recognize who you are today. Because you chose not to stay broken. You chose to break through. And that choice, that moment, that's the turning point. You know what most people get wrong about adversity? They treat it like a punishment, like some cruel twist of fate that's here to ruin them, break them, humiliate them. But adversity isn't out to destroy you. It's here to show you who you really are. It's a mirror, not a curse. When life gets easy, when things go your way, it's tempting to believe you're strong. You feel confident, steady, in control. But the moment everything starts falling apart, that's when the truth shows up. That's when your courage, or lack of it, is exposed. That's when your insecurities start screaming. That's when your decisions reveal whether you've been faking strength or actually building it. And it's uncomfortable. It hurts. It strips you bare. But that's the point. It peels away the surface, the ego, the image you've been selling the world, and leaves behind the raw, unfiltered version of you. And you know what? That version is real. That version is honest. That version has fire in her bones. She may be scared, she may be crawling, but she's not pretending anymore. She's not living for approval. She's fighting from instinct, from heart, from survival. And that is where transformation begins. Because once you see yourself clearly, there's no going back to the illusion. Once you've stood in the storm with nothing but your grit and your backbone, you start realizing how powerful you really are. Not because someone told you, but because you earned it. You faced the mirror. You didn't flinch. And even with your flaws exposed and your fears loud, you didn't break. You stood your ground. And That moment is what adversity is all about. Every time you get knocked down, you're handed one of two options. Stay bitter or get smarter. That's it. Struggle either builds strategy or it breaks you. And the difference is how you decide to respond. When you've been overlooked, passed up, underestimated, what you feel first is pain. But if you're paying attention, what follows is power. Because pain forces you to see what you missed before. It forces you to ask better questions. You stop reacting from emotion and start moving with intention. You stop chasing people, begging for chances, or waiting for someone to hand you a break. You start watching, studying, adjusting. You start playing chess instead of checkers. That struggle trains you to think in layers. You don't just respond to what's happening. You calculate what's coming next. You look at patterns. You become aware of how people move, how systems work, where the real decisions are made. You become surgical in your approach, and that shift, that's when you stop being someone who merely survives adversity and start becoming someone who thrives because of it. The world doesn't give power to the loudest voice. It gives power to the sharpest mind. And adversity, when you use it right, makes you razor sharp. It gives you clarity. It cuts through distractions. It teaches you the discipline to wait, to watch, and to strike only when it counts. You stop wasting time, stop making excuses, stop repeating mistakes, because you felt the cost of failure. Now you move different. Now you think like someone who's been through the fire and came out focused. That's strategy. And it's born from the grind. People want growth, but they don't want the dark. They crave the breakthrough, but not the breakdown. But let me tell you something that no one claps for. Your biggest transformation doesn't happen when life is good. It happens when no one's watching, when you're alone, when you're questioning everything, your path, your worth, your strength. It happens in silence, in those long, sleepless nights where doubt wraps around your chest so tight you can barely breathe. That's where the real growth lives, not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the quiet. Brutal hours when it's just you and your demons. And here's the truth: you don't need the light to grow. You just need the pressure. Trees don't grow roots in the sun, they grow them in the dirt, in the dark, pushing through what feels impossible, unseen, uncelebrated. That's you. Every moment you keep moving, even when you don't see results, even when no one's cheering you on. That's strength most people will never understand. Because you're not performing. You're evolving. You're building patience. You're building discipline. You're learning how to stand still without losing faith. And that kind of growth doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your character. The world measures progress by outcomes. But you start measuring it by how you handle the unseen. How you keep your integrity when no one's validating it. How you stay loyal to your vision when no one's clapping. That's not weakness. That's elite level strength. That's the kind of person who doesn't just survive adversity, they become unstoppable because of it. Mental toughness doesn't show up because you read a book, took a course, or repeated some feel-good affirmations. It's earned. Every scar, every setback, every situation that tested your limits and left you standing, maybe not proud, maybe not perfect, but standing, that's where it was built. You don't get mentally tough because life hands you what you want. You get it when life hands you the opposite, and you still show up, still push forward. Still get the job done when everything inside you says, I can't. You know how you build unshakable focus. You stop letting emotions dictate your choices. You stop folding every time something feels uncomfortable. You start realizing that being tired isn't a reason to quit. That being scared doesn't mean you stop. You understand that fear is not a signal to retreat. It's a cue to rise. That's where the edge is. When the pressure hits and everyone else is tapping out, your mind kicks into another gear. You've trained it to, through repetition, through resistance, through real, raw moments of pain where quitting would have been easier, but you didn't. That's the level most people never reach because they avoid discomfort. But mental toughness lives there. It thrives in discipline. It grows every time you do the hard thing when no one's forcing you. It expands every time you take responsibility instead of pointing fingers. And that kind of mindset, that's dangerous. Because now you don't just have the heart to endure, you have the mind to win. You're no longer just reacting to life. You're running it, And when your mind is built to outlast pressure, you become someone even chaos can't shake. Pain is one of the greatest teachers you will ever meet in your life, and most people are too afraid to listen to it. They try to numb it, outrun it, avoid it, distract themselves from it. But pain doesn't go away when you avoid it. It waits, and the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes, because pain has one job: to wake you up, not to punish you, but to get your attention. And when you finally stop running and sit with it, face it, listen to it, that's when the real transformation begins. Pain will show you everything comfort hides from you. It shows you your weak spots. It highlights the parts of you that are still fragile, unhealed, or underdeveloped. Pain doesn't lie. It's brutally honest. It tells you when you've compromised your boundaries. It exposes the people in your life who don't value your worth. It reveals what you've been tolerating in silence just to feel loved, accepted, or safe. And that is exactly why it's so powerful. Because once you've felt that kind of clarity, you can't unsee it. You start to notice who really has your back. You begin to understand your triggers, your patterns, your blind spots. And in those lessons, those sharp, uncomfortable truths, you gain wisdom. But here's the key: pain only teaches if you're willing to be taught. If you keep avoiding it, blaming others, or pretending you're fine, you'll keep repeating the same cycles. The same relationships, the same failures, the same emotional meltdowns. You'll keep living in a loop because you refuse to learn the lesson that pain is trying to teach you. But if you can sit in that fire and ask the hard questions, what is this showing me? What needs to change in me? What is no longer serving me? Then pain becomes your most powerful ally. The people who evolve, who truly change their lives, are not the ones who never felt pain. They're the ones who used it. They turned the betrayal into boundaries. They turned the heartbreak into healing. They turned the rejection into redirection. And that's not poetic talk. That's grit. That's self-respect. That's discipline. They decided that pain wasn't going to be the thing that broke them. It was going to be the thing that built them. And when you make that decision, your entire life starts shifting. You no longer chase people who don't see your value. You stop shrinking to keep the peace. You stop tolerating environments that make you feel small, because you remember how it felt to betray yourself just to be accepted. And you swore you'd never do it again. That pain becomes your blueprint for higher standards. You don't just hope for better, you demand better. You become better. And that's the difference between someone who stays stuck and someone who grows. The person who stays stuck keeps waiting for pain to disappear before they take action. But the person who grows uses that pain as fuel. They take that anger, that sadness, that disappointment, and they channel it. They build something with it. They work on themselves in the gym, in therapy, in solitude. They read, they train, they observe. They rebuild themselves brick by brick, not because someone's watching, but because they refuse to stay broken. They know they deserve more, and they're willing to bleed for it. And once you build yourself through pain, you become the kind of person who can't be manipulated. You don't flinch when people try to guilt trip you. You don't crumble when life throws another curveball. You've already been in the fire, and now you walk through it with calm. Not because you don't feel fear, but because you know who you are. You're not guessing anymore. You've earned that identity. You've earned that wisdom. And that kind of confidence doesn't come from likes, or followers, or someone's approval. It comes from surviving your lowest point and deciding that was not going to be your ending. It comes from showing up when you didn't want to. From getting out of bed when everything in you was screaming to give up. From saying, no more, when the old version of you would have said, yes, just to feel loved. From keeping promises to yourself even when no one else believed in you. That's not something anyone can hand you. That's forged in adversity, in tears, in silence, in hard decisions no one else sees. And when you walk through enough of that, you start developing a deeper kind of intelligence, one that isn't taught in books. You start reading people differently. You pick up on energy, on tone, on behavior. You see through manipulation, through performance. Because pain has trained your perception, you've seen what it's like to be used, to be dismissed, to be underestimated. So now, your instincts are sharp. You're not just reacting. You're responding from a place of strength, awareness, and clarity. You're playing the long game, and that is where pain takes you if you let it. It sharpens your vision. It teaches you how to move with precision. It shows you what matters, what doesn't, and who's real. It creates depth in you. It gives you a level of strength that is calm, quiet, and unshakable. You don't need to prove anything. You are the proof. You've already walked through what most people are too afraid to even face. So if you're in the middle of pain right now, don't run from it. Don't numb it. Don't pretend it's not real. Feel it, face it, ask it what it's trying to teach you, and then make the choice that most never making grow from it. Use it. Let it shape you. Let it refine you. Let it burn away everything in you that's weighed or fake, and replace it with discipline, courage, and truth. That's how you turn pain into power. That's how you become unrecognizable. That's how you become unstoppable. Nobody bounces back just because time passes. Nobody gets stronger just because they've been through something. You come back better, smarter, and stronger by choice. And that choice isn't made once. It's made every single day when it's still hard, when it still hurts, and when the temptation to stay bitter feels easier than the discipline to get better. The comeback isn't some dramatic, overnight transformation. It's built in silence, in the grind, in those small, quiet moments when you decide, I'm not staying down. There's something powerful that happens when you stop waiting to be rescued. When you stop hoping life will suddenly go easy on you. You realize you're the only one responsible for your healing, not the person who hurt you. Not the people who left, not the world that ignored your pain, you. You decide what happens next. You either stay in the story that broke you, or you rise and start writing a new one. But make no mistake, that rise will cost you. It'll cost your comfort. It'll cost your excuses. It'll cost the old identity that got attached to your pain. And some people don't want to let go of that, because the pain becomes familiar, predictable, safe. But you're not here to live safe. You're here to evolve. You're here to build a version of yourself that would make your past self say, "Damning, we really made it." And you don't do that by staying broken. You don't do that by replaying the betrayal, the failure, the heartbreak. You do that by turning it into fuel. You do that by making every scar count. You come back not just with a smile, not just with survival, but with wisdom, with boundaries, with fire. You speak different. You move different. You stop explaining yourself. You stop asking for permission. You walk into rooms knowing who you are and what you bring. And not everyone's going to like it, and that's okay. You're not here for validation. You're here for impact. And when you commit to coming back better, everything starts to change. Your energy shifts. You attract people who respect your growth instead of people who try to pull you back into who you used to be. You start making decisions from a place of clarity, not desperation. You stop needing external motivation because now your discipline is internal. You don't chase healing anymore. You embody it. Coming better means you've taken the time to study yourself. You know where you went wrong. You know who you trusted that you shouldn't have. You know the situations you allowed that didn't align with your value. And instead of hiding from that truth, you own it. You take accountability. And then you rebuild, this time with intention, this time with armor. Not the kind that blocks people out, but the kind that protects your peace, your standards, and your future. Because you know now, your comeback is your responsibility. And that should fire you up. That should remind you that no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how broken you've felt, you are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are not done. You are becoming. Every setback, every moment of doubt, every day you didn't think you could take another step, and still did, those are the bricks in your foundation. And that foundation is now unshakable. So when people say, "How did you get here?" you don't need to explain the whole journey. You just look them in the eye and say, "I chose this. I chose to come back better. I chose to fight. I chose to rebuild." And that's a power no one can take away from you. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize no one is coming to save them, and that moment hits hard. But it also changes everything. Because once you stop waiting for someone to lead you, to validate you, to pull you out of the pit, you finally step into the role you were meant to play, leader of yourself. That's where true power starts. When you stop outsourcing your confidence, your worth, your happiness, and you take ownership of every decision, every emotion, every move. You begin operating on a whole new level. And it doesn't mean you won't still have doubts. It doesn't mean you won't have moments where you wish someone would just give you the answer. But real leadership, the kind that's built from adversity, means learning how to stand firm even when no one's clapping for you, even when the path isn't clear, even when your voice is the only one guiding you forward. It means becoming someone who doesn't need to be micromanaged, pushed, or rescued, because you've learned how to self-regulate. You've learned how to walk into chaos and create clarity. You've learned how to manage your emotions without exploding or retreating. You've learned how to show up, even when you're tired, even when you're uncertain, even when the stakes are high. That kind of leadership isn't loud. It doesn't need attention. It doesn't need titles. It's in how you carry yourself, how you keep your standards high, even when no one's watching, how you stay calm under pressure, how you make decisions based on values, not impulses. And here's the truth most people don't want to face: until you can lead yourself, you have no business trying to lead anyone else. Because people don't follow words. They follow example. And your life is your loudest message. So if you're still blaming others, if you're still waiting for the right timing, if you're still giving your power away to fear, comfort, or people-pleasing, you're not leading. You're reacting. And there's a big difference between reacting to life and commanding it. When you lead yourself, you don't need someone to tell you to get up, to train, to make the call, to protect your energy. You do it because that's who you've become. You've earned your own trust. You've kept your word to yourself so many times that now your confidence is real. It's grounded. You're not looking around for direction. You are the direction. And yes, you'll make mistakes. You'll have setbacks. But a self-leader doesn't crumble under pressure. They adapt. They take the hit, process the lesson, recalibrate, and move again. That's the standard. That's how you lead from the inside out. Not just with presence, but with precision. You don't chase motivation. You move with discipline. You don't follow trends. You follow truth. And when the world tries to shake you, you don't flinch, because the hardest battles already taught you how to lead in the dark. You already learned how to hold your ground when the winds were strongest. You already led yourself through the nights you didn't think you'd survive. So now, when you walk into any situation, you're not guessing who you are. You've earned that identity. You've fought for that leadership. You've built it in silence. And now, it speaks louder than anything else in the room. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you earn through repeated hits, through failure, through loss, through moments where you didn't know how you were going to make it through, and yet you did. You didn't fold. You didn't vanish. You stood back up, maybe bruised, maybe exhausted, but more focused than ever. That's where resilience is born. Not in the good times, not when everything makes sense, but in the chaos, in the hurt, in the unknown. You don't wake up one day with it. You build it in the storm. And the more you go through, the more you realize how little control you have over what happens to you. But you have complete control over how you respond. That's where your power lies. Life is going to test you. People will betray you. Things you thought were certain will collapse. But if every single time you get knocked down you choose to rise, every single time, you start creating a version of yourself that nothing can break. Because it's not about the size of the storm, it's about the strength of your foundation. And when your foundation is built on resilience, you're not just prepared. You're unshakable. You stop fearing hard times because you've already faced worse. You stop worrying about who walks away because you've already learned how to stand alone. You don't panic when the plan falls apart because you've trained yourself to improvise, to adapt, to adjust. Resilience gives you range. You can feel pain and still move. You can be unsure and still act. You can get your heart broken and still keep your standards high. That's what separates the average from the exceptional. It's not about never breaking down. It's about never staying down. And it doesn't mean you're cold or emotionless. It means your emotions don't control your life. You've learned to feel them, process them, and keep going. Resilience gives you that grace. It gives you the capacity to carry weight without collapsing. It gives you perspective. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you ask, What's next? Instead of getting stuck in the moment, you zoom out and see the bigger picture. You see that the things meant to break you actually made you. That the pain became your protection. That the loss gave you vision. That the pressure shaped your power. And once you know what you've survived, once you've been through hell and walked out wiser, you don't walk through life with fear anymore. You walk with quiet strength. You don't brag about what you've endured. But you don't have to prove anything to anyone, but your presence says everything. That's what resilience does. It rewires your nervous system. You stop overreacting. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You move even when it's hard. You speak even when your voice shakes. You keep your integrity even when the easy road begs you to take it. And people notice. Because real resilience doesn't need to scream. It shows up in how you handle pressure. How you treat others when you're under stress. How you don't crumble when everything around you is unstable. You lead with calm, with certainty, with steadiness. And that steadiness becomes your edge. In a world full of chaos, you are the anchor. Not because life never tried to pull you under, but because every time it did, you refused to drown. There's a moment that comes after the pain, after the fall, after the silence. When you start seeing things differently, you're no longer looking at life through the same lens. That version of you who was operating from fear, from insecurity, from needing approval, she's gone. Because the pain did something no one else could do. It taught you. It taught you in ways comfort never could. And what it taught you wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. You didn't just survive something. You came out of it with wisdom. You started asking harder questions, setting stronger boundaries, and making smarter choices. And that wisdom didn't come cheap. You paid for it in heartbreak, in disappointment, in betrayal. You paid for it by trusting the wrong people. You paid for it by giving too much of yourself to things that gave nothing back. And now, you move differently. You think before you speak. You observe before you react. You don't just give people access to you, they earn it. You stop confusing potential with patterns. You stop romanticizing what could be and start paying attention to what actually is. That's growth. That's what pain taught you. Because once you've gone through enough, you start realizing that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every opportunity is for you. Not every connection needs to be kept alive. You're not running on emotion anymore. You're running on clarity. You're no longer desperate to fit in because you've seen what it costs to shrink yourself. You've lost enough time, enough peace, enough energy trying to prove your worth. So now, you don't prove anything. You just are. You don't chase validation, you move in truth. You operate from experience, not from ego. That wisdom shows up in how you protect your peace, in how you manage your energy, in how you stop letting people manipulate you through guilt or shame. You don't get baited into every argument. You don't seek revenge. You seek results. You're not interested in drama, in petty fights, in going back and forth with people who don't even know who they are. You've got goals. You've got standards. You've got vision. And you're not willing to compromise that just to feel liked or understood. Because you've been through too much to keep repeating the same cycles. You've seen what happens when you ignore red flags. You've felt the pain of betraying yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. You've watched yourself settle, and now you've made a vow never to do that again. You don't look back with anger. You look back with understanding. That version of you didn't know better. But this version, she does. She sees clearly. She knows her value. She knows her triggers. She knows her power. And she doesn't hand it out to just anyone. And that's what makes you dangerous. In the best possible way. Not because you're cold or guarded, but because you're wise. Because you've taken every painful moment and turned it into perspective. You've turned the chaos into clarity. And now, your decisions come from alignment, not approval. Your strength is rooted in discernment. And your future, it's no longer built on wishful thinking. It's built on strategy, self-respect, and a level of insight only earned through experience. There's a version of you that no longer flinches. She doesn't over-explain herself. She doesn't beg to be seen. She's not shaken by someone else's opinion. That version of you, the one who is calm, focused, and absolutely clear about who she is. That version didn't come from ease. She was forged in adversity. And not just any adversity. The kind that tries to rip you apart piece by piece. The kind that makes you question everything, that strips away your identity, your security, your certainty. The kind that breaks people. But somehow, it didn't break you. It built you. Because after you've been through enough pain, enough failure, enough betrayal, something inside of you changes. You stop breaking at every blow. You stop running from discomfort. You stop being impressed by shallow promises or surface-level praise. You become someone who's seen too much to be fooled. Someone who's been through too much to be shaken. And that kind of strength. It's quiet, it's grounded, and it's earned. You realize that your scars aren't flaws, they're proof. They tell a story. They say, I survived that. I grew from that. I won't go back to that. You carry that story with pride, not as a victim, but as a warrior. You've learned how to stand alone. You've learned how to think clearly when emotions are high. You've learned how to protect your peace without guilt. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's maturity. That's control. And no one can fake that. No one can shortcut their way to that kind of presence. It's built through grit, through heartbreak, through lessons you had to learn the hard way. And what's powerful now is that you don't just know who you are. You know who you're not. You no longer try to fix what isn't yours to carry. You don't tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. You don't chase anyone to feel validated. You've outgrown that. Now you walk with purpose. Now your silence carries more weight than someone else's shouting. Because you've done the internal work. You've battled the inner critic. You've conquered the self-doubt. You've earned your own respect. And when you have that, external approval becomes irrelevant. That's what being unbreakable looks like. It's not about being hard. It's not about building walls. It's about being rooted in truth. It's about knowing that no matter what happens around you, you won't lose yourself in it. You won't fold. You won't regress. You won't crumble. Because you've already rebuilt yourself once, and you know you can do it again if you have to. That's the level of confidence people don't talk about. The kind that comes from endurance, from survival, from having stood face to face with your darkest hour and refusing to bow. You are not fragile. You are not a product of your pain. You are the architect of your strength. And now the version of you that walks into every room, speaks from clarity, and moves with unshakable intention. That version is the result of every hard moment you once prayed would pass. She's not scared. She's not small. She's not waiting anymore. She's here. And she's not going anywhere. So now you understand, adversity didn't come to destroy you. It came to reveal you. Every breakdown was carving out your breakthrough. Every sleepless night was building your mental armor. Every betrayal was pointing you back to your own power. You didn't just survive what was meant to break you. You became someone else because of it. Someone wiser. Someone stronger. Someone no longer easily shaken. And that version of you, she doesn't need applause. She doesn't wait for permission. She walks with purpose. She leads herself. She's not the same woman who once doubted her worth. She knows it now. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by how you chose to rise from it. And from this moment forward, you don't go back. You don't shrink. You don't explain. You keep building, keep evolving, keep leading. Because the strongest, smartest, most unstoppable version of you wasn't born in comfort. She was forged in adversity, and now she's ready for anything.